know that I've been struggling a bit with the reading comp section, and it's just consistently been the weakest area. And I know that I do get most of the questions, if not all, right. If I just do like a blind review, then I would. So I'm just sort of struggling with, am I wasting too much time taking notes? Am I not spending enough time on the questions? Or like, am I not grasping what the passage is about when I'm reading it under the time constraint? So that's what I'm trying to balance, like all of that stuff.
Right. I remember during the group coaching call, you mentioned that. And I had this idea for you about what if you could find some middle ground where you weren't taking as many notes as you do right now, but you develop a system where you're taking enough notes to help you recall and feel like you have a good handle on the situation.
Okay. So how would you suggest I do that?
Well, ultimately, you'll have to adapt any note-taking system to your own situation, whatever makes you feel most comfortable adapting the material in the passage. So given what you're doing right now, it sounds like you were taking a lot of notes, and I think you even mentioned that not all of them were useful to you in answering the questions. Is that correct?
None of them are.
None of them.
I never look back at them.
Right. Okay. So what is it about taking these notes that makes you feel like you're gaining something in the moment that you're writing them down?
So firstly, I don't take notes on every single one of the passages, but I guess I start writing down notes when I feel like I'm going to struggle with the rest of the passage if I don't. So if it's like maybe like a topic that's unfamiliar, or if the language is a bit like tough to grasp, then I would take those notes. And also the notes just help me think like what's the author's attitude, like what the viewpoint is, like better than I would without the notes.
Okay, so how would you describe the author's attitude in a given passage? Can you give me an example of what you might write down to capture that idea?
I would pretty much just say AA. Like I denote like this. So my note would be, so if it's the first, say, paragraph in the reading comp that has the author's attitude, I'd just say 1 AA in my notes. Like that's what I'd say. But if it's something like really complicated that it took me like a couple seconds to understand, like I'll write it down, probably because I think I'll forget it if I don't.
I mean, writing down AA doesn't sound like too much work to me. What else is going on in your notes?
What else is, just give me a second. Let me bring this up. Yeah, so I have like an example of a time test and then the blind review. So under the time test, I just wrote AA and then a not symbol with V1. So that's what I wrote. It's just basically like a couple of words. But then when I did the blind review, like this is kind of semi-legible. It says AA against, like spelled out against, like evidence 1 from V1, not like the old norm. Like that's what the whole, like it's like a whole sentence.
Right.
So that was the difference. And for this specific reading comp, like I think I scored like with 100% accuracy when I did it in the blind review versus when I did it under the time conditions. I think I lost 2 points.
Okay. So with the minimal note taking that you did initially, you lost maybe 2 points.
Yeah.
So for the specific questions that you got wrong, what was different in your notes there? Whereupon the review, you got those correct.
From what I remember, I think the questions like always had a line reference. So I also had the time to go back and check those through. I think this is from test 89. And I think the first essay wasn't something about the movies and like how they're like exhibitioning at all these places, and there was a specific line in the paragraph that I sort of remembered reading, and it said that, oh, if you have like films that are like non-fictional, fictional, and all these other types, people like understand them more. And I sort of remembered reading it, but then I forgot about it when I did the questions. And then I think I got one question wrong, which specifically sort of asked for that line. And like it was literally one of the options. And I just have it written down here because I just thought it was important. And like I knew that there might be a question about it.
Right, I see.
But at the same time, when I wrote it down, I never looked back at it again. Like it was just, I remembered it then.
Do you think that if you were able to keep your notes as concise as you do on your initial attempts under the timed conditions, that you could continue with that without really missing anything?
Sometimes, yes, but I just don't want to play a gamble. Like, how do I consistently like make sure that I get it right? Because like I know that I can. So is it just a matter of doing as many reading comps as I can?
I don't think it's a matter of volume necessarily. I think it's a matter of over time discovering what it is that you need to focus on in the passage for those specific questions, especially when there's line references.
Okay. Like I feel like if I write down notes for like passages that I'm uncomfortable with, like it just takes away time from the tougher passages. Like, do you know what I mean? Like this was the first passage. So like it just took like a lot out of me to write it down. And then I noticed that like I just started taking like lesser and lesser notes for the rest of them because I felt like the time's running out.
Right. So this comes back to the idea of the gamble you mentioned, where there's always a gamble, right? I mean, the LSAT is so strictly timed that it's almost unreasonable of them, or it is unreasonable of them to ask you to do everything in the time allotted.
Yeah.
But then, as you said, as you recognized, the notes that you're taking earlier on the easier passages are actually costing you time from the tougher passages where you need them.
But I also don't know which passage is going to be tougher. Like they're not arranged in like the order of difficulty. I don't think so.
Not a strict order of difficulty, no. But I think it's typically the case that the first passage will not be the toughest, and the fourth will not be the easiest. And upon a quick glance of the passage, you could probably get a sense of how complex it is, especially if your level of comfort with the topic or the vocabulary used is greater or lesser.
Sure. Do you feel if I just like read more actively, like it's gonna help, and not just reading for the LSAT, but I mean like reading like books outside the LSAT? Is that gonna benefit?
Yes, it will definitely benefit, but the question is the time investment involved. So when are you taking the LSAT?
I hope in March, end of March.
Right, so that's about a month and a half from now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, I would say you want to focus on simply actual LSAT material and nothing more. If you were taking it a year from now, then sure, I would say read all those other outside sources of complex material. But LSAT passages are enough for you for the next month and a half. You didn't need to go beyond them.
Okay. And that's okay. And the other thing is that sometimes like the score fluctuates, and I feel like the most fluctuation comes from the fact that I'm not scoring well in the reading comp. And I've also noticed that the better I get at the reading comp, like I also get better at the logical reasoning. So do you just think I should maybe like give up on like improving the reading comp and just make sure that I near perfect all the other sections?
I would never suggest that you give up on anything.
Yeah.
But
no, I mean like not stop practicing it, but like it's just that I just don't see much improvement. And like some days I just see them it's perfect, and then some days like I haven't even changed anything and everything goes downhill.
I think there is still experimentation and work to do for you on reading comprehension in terms of finding a balance with the note taking, where you could take a little bit fewer notes on the first passage and save more time to even things out with the later passages. So can you find an average of what the level of note-taking is right for you to process the information? And for many people, I would say, don't write down anything at all or keep it really, really minimal. But I also recognize that different people process information differently. I mean, some people, their books are full of highlights and no underlines, right? And I imagine you're falling into that category, perhaps.
Yeah.
And other folks keep their books pristine.
Yeah.
Others will put little tags and Post-its on them. Others will keep everything in a journal. Everybody's different. So I don't want to tell you to radically alter your reading comprehension approach at this point in your life with the LSAT a month and a half away. I think I just want you to moderate it a little bit so that passage 1 doesn't have all the notes and passage 4 has hardly anything, because passage 4 probably needs the notes more than passage 1 does. Just like you wouldn't take notes for like Clifford the Big Red Dog book, but you would take notes for quantum physics, right?
Yeah. Okay. So should I be always doing time passages from now to the LSAT? Because I feel like I can score well when there's no timer ticking. So is that what's going to help me if like every single one of those things is timed?
Well, a couple of things you could do. I mean, one approach would be time everything because the LSAT's a month and a half away and you want to work on the pacing and the endurance. And I think for you especially, a lot of your difficulty with the LSAT is the pacing where you're running out of time because of taking too many notes on certain passages, not enough on others. Another approach you could take would be to time it initially pretty strict and then review in depth untimed. And I would certainly recommend doing that as you have been doing.
Yeah.
Another approach you could mix in there would be to, let's say you have an average of 845 per passage, of course, 35 in a section, but not all passages are of equal difficulty. So for that reason, I would say maybe give yourself 40 minutes for the section and then aim to reduce it gradually down to 35.
Sure.
And ideally for a top score, down to 33-ish, so you have a buffer.
Yeah.
I always love my students to complete the LSAT sections with a little bit of a buffer, just a minute or two for safety. And then also so that you have a little bit of time to review something tough that you may have wanted to return to. On reading comp and games, it's tougher because they're grouped and you have to reinvest yourself in the framework. But for logical reasoning, especially to have that buffer to go back, that time bank to tackle the toughest ones you may have flagged, I think is really useful to start building in. And in this final 6 weeks or so, I think that's where you want to be thinking about things like the pacing, the endurance, how you allocate your time over the course of the section. Because at this point, I think you already have a pretty good foundation in the ins and outs of the LSAT, the various question types and such. So for you, I think pacing is really key right now. Okay.
Like another thing that I've been following was like the plans that you had, and I got one of those, and then like I'm doing that, but I don't know like how beneficial it is, because like if I'm not doing like a full test someday, like I'll be doing enough questions to like have like the full test, and I've just stopped, like I've just given up on like just focusing on like one section a day, because I just go into panic. Like I have to do some questions from every section every day. Maybe I'll focus more on one day, but then I'll do it. So like what would you suggest I should be studying? Like what should my study plan be like from now till the LSAT?
Well, I certainly want you to devote extra time to reading comprehension, since that's been the focus lately, and that's been a weak area that you've noted lately. So I want you to mix that in more often than otherwise, perhaps. Yeah. I would say once you have the foundation, at this point, it's about timed exams, timed sections, and review. So my rule for this is typically maximum 2 timed tests per week and minimum 2 hours of review per test.
Okay.
If you, given what you said about feeling uncomfortable leaving out a section each day, let's think about it for a minute. Because if you've got 2 timed exams and you're reviewing each one in depth, that already eats up a good chunk of your week.
Yeah.
On the days that you're reviewing, you are still looking at games, reasoning, and reading comp as you review them, unless you got perfect on any one of those sections. And if you also felt like all of them went perfectly efficiently, because even if you got everything right, maybe you could have done something better. And you might want to look at that too if you noted having special trouble with that. The other thing is you might, on the days that you're not doing timed exams, and if you're also not reviewing, you could either take the day off, and I really want you to take some days off here and there, at least one per week so you don't burn out.
Yeah.
And then if you're not taking the day off, you could do a timed section or two. Now, if you're doing only one or two, that means you're inevitably leaving out one section. It's okay. You're not going to forget everything in one day.
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay.
So try to see what that's like. I don't want you to do 2 timed exams and then another day with 3 sections, because that's still pretty close to a full exam.
So, okay. So from now to the LSAT, I don't have any work. I just don't have anything else. So this is LSAT full time. And so would you still say 2 exams? Because I've felt like even doing 3 in a week and then spending like the next whole day just focusing on, you know, the mistakes I made, like has been okay. Like, is that too much?
Everyone's different. I'm not going to say that it's not okay for you, that it's too much for you, but I would want you to be really careful about measuring your energy level around this, because, and that you're not getting fatigued, that you're not getting burnt out, because studying full time for the next 6 weeks, 3 exams a week, that's 18 exams plus reviewing all 18. And you're really doing more than 18 exams worth of material if you're doing 5-section exams.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So I would ask you, what are you going to get out of 3 exams that you're not going to get out of 2 exams? Pushing it just a little bit more with that extra exam also gives you a ton of extra material to have to review. And you also may want to work on weak areas. You may want to work more on drilling reading comprehension, as we discussed.
Yeah.
Figuring out pacing there. So maybe instead of doing a 3rd exam, doing a timed reading comp section or 2 and reviewing that might be more useful, because you could go deeper on it than if you have such a large volume of material to review. And then you also want to take time to get outdoors a bit. You want to deal with things like sleep, diet, exercise, relaxation, mindfulness, socializing. Things of that nature are really important too, that to help you be at 100%.
Okay. Just one more thing with how I'm doing the full length test. I'll make the experimental section like the section that I'm like struggling with the most. So like if I'm struggling with reading comp, like the past few tests that I've done, the ones where I put in an extra reading comp in. So like that's what I meant, that I just try to focus more on my weak area and still get like all the sections in. Like is that enough, or like is that not enough?
It sounds like to me like you've got plenty of material that you're working on already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do everything I can. And also I want to know if I should even look at the tests that are in the 20s or the 30s or the 40s, because I noticed that obviously they're easier, but at the same time, if I go through like the 60 to 80 set that quick, I might not have enough to do like the week before the test or something.
Yeah, I would definitely want you to budget it out so that you're doing more recent stuff closer to test day. With 6 weeks remaining, I don't think that you need to go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
But if you want to work on games, for example, there's a lot of tough, weird curveball games in the older exams, even going back to the first 10. So you might want to hand pick the tough games just to review those, so that you can experience being thrown for a loop and have a handle on how to handle that if it comes up on test day.
Yeah, I've noticed there's been like a weird game in like the recent tests. Like there's always one. So you have a list on your blog which has all the hard games. Like, is that what you'd suggest I do to get a grasp of like something that's odd or different?
I would, yeah. And that's one of those things you can mix in along with working on reading comp pacing, rather than simply adding in yet another timed exam each week. I think you get more value out of focusing on weak areas and then really tough problems.
Okay. Do you think it's still like beneficial for me to like work with a tutor? Because you suggested like one of your tutors, and then I did like reach out and I did do a couple of sessions. Like it was helpful, but like I'm not sure if anyone can help me right now apart from like me just doing things. Like, is there anything that like can a tutor add value at this stage?
They certainly can. I mean, they help you see your own blind spots, because you can't see your own. So having an outside perspective really helps. Having someone to talk through difficult problems with can really help. So if there are certain things that you just can't crack, that you can't resolve, things that are keeping you up at night, then saving a running list of them and then going over them with someone could be really helpful. So yeah, just an hour here, an hour there. Why not?
Okay. But like that's the thing. There's nothing that's like I just can never do. Like I can always do them. Like if not today, I'll like do it tomorrow after like a good night's sleep and I'll get it. So like I'm at that stage. Like what do I do?
Then it sounds like the things that we've been talking through today. I mean, that's what you need, the kinds of conversations you need to be having. And that's what the group coaching is for inside the course, like we've been having. Yeah. So keep attending sessions, keep attending the classes, bring your questions, and we'll talk through them together.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if this, like, I know this wasn't like studying for the LSAT, but it just makes me feel less panicked.
Awesome.
Not
that's
even
the goal.
panic, just like de-stresses me a little bit.
Well, that's part of the value of LSAT coaching. And so I'm glad to have you in the course. I'm glad to have you coming to class. Before we sign off, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
Not to do 3 tests, and probably focus more on the weaker areas instead of doing too many time tests, and making sure that I have the most recent tests left for the week before the actual LSAT.
Awesome. Great. Well, please keep in touch, and I'll see you in class soon.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.